Hey, what's going on guys, and welcome back to another video. Today we're going to be taking a look at part 5 of our 7 video micro tutorial. In this part we're going to be taking a look at the military stances, which is stuff like aggressive stance, defensive stance, stand ground, and no attack stance. So before we start, I just want to say that the no attack stance is pretty much useless in most case scenarios, and we'll just disregard it for this video. Also, since micro is more of an early game idea, where the point of it is to get a small advantage that later snowballs into a bigger late game advantage, I decided to replicate certain early game scenarios that could come up very often. So, for example, scouts raiding an exposed wood line, men at arms attacking wood line close to a TC, and then some small archer fights as well. So the idea of this video is to show you the different stances, when they're used for, and what their properties are. And hopefully by the end of it, you'll know exactly which one to use in each scenario. So without further ado, let's hop right into the video. Alright, so for this first scenario, we're going to have a few scouts attacking an exposed wood line, and I'm going to hit both sides. So there's 3 vills on the side, 3 vills on the side. I'm going to hit the first side using the scouts on aggressive, and I'll show you exactly what happens. I'm moving them in box formation. If you guys watched my previous video, you know why. And we're just going to target one of them. Again, we're on aggressive stance. Let's see what happens. Alright, so after a little bit, maybe some spearmen come by, and we're forced to run away. Alright. So now, looking back on the raid, let's analyze it and determine whether it was a successful raid or not. So if you take a look at the 3 villagers, notice that none of them are dead, and 2 of them are injured. That's weird because I only told my scouts to attack this one villager. However, some of them split their damage and ended up attacking another villager. So this is why the aggressive stance is not the best one to raid in small numbers, because the scouts will actually split the damage on multiple villagers, and if you're forced to run away shortly after, well, then you're left with a very unsuccessful raid, because 2 half HP villagers gather the same amount of resources as 2 full HP villagers, and in a sense, you've pretty much done nothing in this raid, and you haven't killed a villager. Let's do the same one on stand ground now, and we're just going to target this villager. There we go. And let's see what happens this time. Alright, so he's stuck, so it's a little bit different. Maybe we'll let him go out. But the idea remains the same, that they will not target other villagers. That's very important. So notice, even after they're done, they're not going to hit other villagers, and they're going to stick on this one target until he's dead. And this is much more effective, because let's say now I get forced back because of some spears. Let's look back on this raid now. Well, he's lost a villager. So instead of having 3 vills gathering wood, he's only got 2. And this is indeed a successful raid. So again, the difference between this raid and this raid was literally just having them on stand ground and having them on aggressive. Alright, so let's take a look at this next scenario as well. We got some men at arms here, and we're going to approach a wood line. So there's 2 ways to approach this, either on stand ground or on aggressive once again. Let's see on stand ground first. Now with men at arms, there's a lot of stuff going on at your base as well, since the build order is very tight. And a lot of you guys know that, you can't always be looking at your military when you're playing. So what I see often in low rated games is that they'll move their men at arms close to a wood line, but they'll have them on aggressive, and I'll show you what happens when you do that. On stand ground, however, which is what I recommend, it looks something like this. You'll click near a woodline, you'll multitask at home, you come back to them, and they'll be exactly where you left them. This way, they don't do stuff they're not supposed to, and you won't lose them by accident. And then when you come back, you can just go ahead and target the villager. If you do the same thing on aggressive, for example, too close to a TC, and then you macro manage at home, you come back to them, and you'll actually see that they're going to be doing their own thing. Now this could be good, but if the villagers run back to the TC, for example, and you actually lose your men-at-arms to the town center, which I see happen way too often, you can end up losing all 3 of your men-at-arms just because you weren't looking for a split second. So again, it's super risky to just stop them when they're on aggressive, because they will just keep doing their own thing. And sometimes that could be good, but most often it's pretty bad, and you'll end up running towards your opponent's TC. Alrighty, so now that you guys understand that when you're raiding with melee units, oftentimes it's better to keep them in stand ground, and I hope you guys can learn about that. Next, let's take a look at the ranged units, the archers. Now, I'd recommend you always use them on stand ground for, a number of reasons, but let's just name the first one here. When you're patrolling across the map, and let's say you're on aggressive, so this first group is on aggressive, let's see what happens when they start their fight. And I'll show you guys exactly what's going to happen. Notice how when they're going to engage the fight, they're going to actually start walking and bumping into each other, and they're going to take this kind of line formation. It's very easy as a human player to micro against this formation, and in the end, you're going to probably find a human player just walk to the side, hit a couple of them, run, hit another one, and run, and they'll end up winning the fight. Now, this is not the case on stand ground patrol, and I'll show you exactly what they do instead. So let's take a look. We're patrolling in here. And they're not going to take that line formation where they spread out. Instead, they're going to pile up on each other. And this makes it a lot harder for your opponent to single one of them out. And then you could just pull them back when you look back to the fight. So again, that's just something you can do with stand ground patrol compared to aggressive patrol on range units, and it makes it a lot more compact when they are in stand ground. Alright, so for these next few scenarios, we're going to have 4 scouts attacking a protected woodline. So this is a very common scenario, 2 spears on a woodline, we've got 4 scouts. Let's approach it now. I'm going to keep them on stand ground and on box formation, because we've deduced that that's the best way to approach these situations. But now let's take a look at the spearmen in this situation. So in this first case, I've got the same case 3 times, by the way. In the first case, they're going to be on aggressive stance, so the spearmen are set to aggressive stance. Let's see how we can exploit that. So we're going to approach with our scouts here, and the spear naturally will come and try to attack us. However, one thing we can do is just lure it away with one scout, and then using the other scouts, we can go in and swoop and do some damage. Another spear comes in, we'll do the same thing here, lure it away, and notice how the spears don't come back to the original position, and now this woodline is exposed. This is called baiting the spears away, and you end up pretty much having an unprotected woodline, even though you thought it was safe with 2 spears. Alright, so that's why I would recommend aggressive stance on spears when they're defending your wood camps is not what you want to be doing. Alright, let's take a look at the second scenario. This time the spears will be on defensive stance. Let's see if we can exploit that in the same way. So stand ground, box formation, let's attack it. Alright, so same thing happens, it's going to get lured towards us. However, this time, if we lure it away too far, it's actually going to return to its original position. Now this is really good because if I try to sneak in, it's always going to catch me, and if I try to run away, it's not going to chase my scouts. It's going to go right back. So I actually think that putting your spears on defensive when you're defending a wood camp is the best thing you can do. It gives you the best amount of protection without having you to constantly keep an eye on them. Alright, finally, let's take a look at one more situation. Same scenario here, scouts approaching. This time the spears are on stand ground. Let's see what we can do to exploit this one. So I'm going to walk in, I'm going to try to lure it away, but the spear isn't budging. It's on stand ground. However, if you walk too close to it, it will actually get a hit off you. There you go. So stand ground spears aren't too bad, and I think if you're a very experienced player, it could be the best way to go. However, if you're a bit of a new player and you're not paying attention, they don't actually defend your villagers if you do attack. So if they are on stand ground and there's some scouts raiding your woodline, they won't actually come to help. And so in a sense, they could be useless if you're not paying attention. However, in high-level games, they allow your opponent not to be able to counterplay them by luring them away because they simply do not move. So that's pretty much it. 6 early game scenarios that happen pretty much in every single one of your games. So I hope you guys learned something and really start to understand that the different unit stances can have a very small effect that can make a big impact on the scenarios here. So again, just to recap real quick, melee units usually go on stand ground and box formation when you are trying to raid, villagers. Range units usually always stay on stand ground because they stack better when patrolling. And then finally, your spearmen, when you're defending, should go in defensive stance if you're an intermediate player, and should go on stand ground if you're an expert player, or if you keep a good eye on them. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I'll see you guys in the next video. And on the next video, I'll probably be talking about patrols and how to take big late game fights. So I hope you guys enjoyed, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.